Before we get too far into the episode, we just want to bring some attention to the fact that our beloved friends and a huge fixture in the Ultimate community, the Landesman family, had their house burned down in the recent LA fires. We have their GoFundMe linked on social media. We'll link it here below. If you could check that out, that would mean a lot to us. Thank you.
Get 40% off Pod Practice t-shirts by visiting our Ko-fi shop. Enter promo code PRACTICEPLAYER, all caps. We also offer free shipping to the United States and now ship worldwide.
Over here at Pod Practice, we are excited to announce that we are partnering with Greatest Bag to provide you with all of your Ultimate Bag needs. If you're looking to get a new Ultimate Bag, head on over to greatestbag.com. And if you use code PODPRACTICE10, you will receive 10% off your purchase. Welcome to Season 3 of Pod Practice with Team USA player Quinn Finer, Team USA Grandmaster player Mikey Lunn, and myself, Alex Atkins. You can now find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We want to keep growing the Pod Practice community, so reach out to us with your thoughts on IG and YouTube at podpractice_pod, or email us at show@podpracticepod.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We have a very exciting episode today with Tony Leonardo. He is currently working on a documentary called The Lot, looking to fill the gaps in the history of Ultimate. And I know for myself, and I think speaking for Mikey and Quinn too, this episode was really exciting and enriching, just hearing about all the different stories that have maybe gotten a bit lost through the time in Ultimate. So I think you're really going to enjoy this and look for more history of Ultimate to come in the future.
Look, I'll tell you, the reason that I'm making this documentary straight up is because we don't know where we came from. I mean, it's embarrassing. Like a sport, we don't know as a sport who we are, where we came from, why we exist, and what we're doing, honestly. And the reason I'm working on this documentary is to find out all that, put those answers out there because I've researched it now. That's
like basically the Lord's work for Ultimate.
Let me quickly, I'll welcome in Tony Leonardo, Ultimate historian. Thanks for being here, Tony. How's it going?
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas. Going great. Nice Indiana shirt.
Mikey has to get that intro in, before we start. We'll be talking about anything, but we need to get that part.
His brain doesn't let the podcast roll unless he's got.
No, unless we said that and asked them how they're doing.
I was thinking about. We were texting today, Tony, before we jumped on, and I was about to send them a prompt of today. Let's try to use one of those. The rule of improv where it's just yes and where you're agreeing with each other and not antagonizing each other all the time. These guys like to give me a ton of shit, but we do
You're
appreciate
wrong.
you being
You're
here,
right.
Tony.
I'll just gotta go with that. But they're entertaining.
That's what matters.
They are the talents. They are the talents. Tony, can you give us a little bit of background on your history with Frisbee first before we get into the meat of today's episode?
Yeah, I started in Ultimate. I think like a lot of people, I had played some sports in high school and middle school and whatnot. But one day, just this kid came up to me and he's like, one of my friends. He's like, "Hey, you want to play this Ultimate Frisbee game?" And I was like, "Yeah, all right, whatever." So we went to the local park with his uncle, and his uncle was the local guy, and this is in South Bend, Indiana. And there was four of us. We were all four freshmen in high school and never heard of the sport, never heard of playing. And we started playing, and I caught everything they threw to me. I'm really tall. And so they're like, "Oh, there's this young, tall high school kid. Let's just throw stuff to him." And I just caught it. And I never, I was like, okay. And they're like, "Hey, hands, you got to come out again." So I'm like, okay. So for the first year, that was my, that was my nickname. They called me Hands with the Hans. So I was like Hans for a while. And I just fell in love with the sport. And that gang of kids all did. A couple of them went down to IU and played with the Hoosier Mamas and then did well at nationals. I stayed in South Bend and ended up going to Notre Dame and then founding the team at Notre Dame because I just kind of wanted to keep playing.
Let's move to why we really wanted to talk to you today, and that's the lot, your project over the last few years. Tell us about what the lot is and what made you want to start this project.
I think that this is the most important thing I've ever done in my life. This is the most important thing I think for the sport right now. It's a bold statement to make, but besides youth, I focus on youth. The story of our sport isn't told, and it's hurting us, and we don't realize it. Like, we don't know where we came from. We don't know why we exist. We don't know why some of these things I'm telling you, where they came from. And it means that we are split apart. The sport is going in many different directions at once, and there's no sense of cohesion. And right now, we've talked to Charlie, right? We know what the numbers are. Our sport is kind of stagnating. So how this coincides with this film, this film is a complete and total capturing of the essences of what makes Ultimate. And it's not a Ken Burns film. Okay. This is something where I saw that there was an opportunity for this complex sport to be brought to life in a way that I think audiences and our Ultimate players can relate to. And so I decided to start going down that path. And this was about 5 years ago. It takes a long time to make a documentary, and it takes a fair bit of money. So, and especially for independent, and that's kind of what we're doing and what I'm doing. And I'm doing it right. Like, we're shooting it at a high level, and we're capturing the pioneers of the sport, and we're capturing the current generation. And I'm mirroring the two to show where we came from and where we are today. And you see the conflicts between where we came from, where we are today, vis-a-vis progress and vis-a-vis other sports. And it kind of frames us into a larger sense of I went out to Australia. Quinn, I know you're there. I'm in Brisbane, and the reason I go to Brisbane is because we know that the Olympics are coming to Brisbane in 2032. This movie is not about should Ultimate get into the Olympics, but this film is going to talk about why Ultimate is not in the Olympics. And there's a reason for that. In the 1970s, the people that brought this sport to the forefront thought that, hey, this is a great sport for the Olympics. Why? Because we weren't commercial. We didn't have paid athletes. And in the 70s, in the 80s, the Olympics didn't have paid athletes. They were for amateurs. So our sport fit that. Our sport has stayed the same, and the Olympics changed. The Olympics isn't like that anymore. And it's kind of amazing. And it's like, I don't care if we get in the Olympics or not. I don't care if, the pro leagues fail or succeed. I mean, that's not true. I love all things of Ultimate, and I think it'd be great. And it'd be great if we got in the Olympics. It'd be great if the pro leagues kicked ass. But I'm not trying to. But the documentary doesn't. My story doesn't care. It's neutral, and we're agnostic. But the fact that we have a sport that is kind of ready-made for the times, like we are a sport that any kid today can kind of identify with. And I'm teaching kids and any adult, like, hey, we're this amazing sport and we play fair, and we have great competition, and we're open to anyone, and we play mixed, and we have all the values of Ultimate Frisbee are resonant today. So why aren't we succeeding? Why aren't we getting bigger? Why aren't we embraced by varsity? NCAA was supposed to take girls Ultimate Frisbee from us 10, 15 years ago because they needed women's sports to fix Title IX. They're not, and they're never going to, because NFL flag football is coming in, and lacrosse and all these other ones. We're falling behind. And so this documentary is hoping to be able to capture that and show it to the world and let the story be told.
It makes me think of all the personalities that are in the sport, all the stories that we have that just are never told. And whenever I get insight on the personalities of other sports, other niche sports, it always makes me so pumped up to just know more about it.
I mean, I'll tell you a couple things. It's like, we're very quixotic. Like, the kids in 19, they're teenagers, right? These teenagers, they said anyone can play. So everyone plays. So it's boys and girls. And there's like kind of like jockey guys. There's like jockey girls because they didn't have another sport to play in high school. There's kind of nerds and there's theater people. There's this and that. But after they start playing every night. Like they're playing all the time. Like this becomes an addictive sport because it's so good. And they're playing in this parking lot. And they print the rules up and the rules look great. And they're like, hey, we're going to go to an exhibition in Canada. It's the Frisbee Championships in Canada in 1974, something like that, sponsored by Wham-O. And we're gonna bring the rules and we're gonna show them ultimate Frisbee. And by the way, we're gonna write up a little write up that says this is another great sport, and we're gonna drop it off of the Montreal Olympic Committee so that in 1976 they might have a chance at picking up the sport. What? like that was never gonna happen, but they saw that, like they wanted to do that. Like there was always a zeal about this sport to kind of promote it. And that's what's gotten us as far as we have. Like we're worldwide, we're huge. And still the story hasn't been told. Like, I mean, we still don't know who we are and where we came from and why we exist. You know, it's strange.
What are the final things that you are trying to wrap up? Do you, or is it kind of ongoing until you know it's ready to be released?
No, we've shot most of the interviews with sort of the pioneers of the sport, but there's about 5 to 10 of them outstanding. Most importantly, Joel. So Joel Silver is still to come, and I talked to Joel Silver this summer. Joel Silver will be part of this film if he wants to be a part of this film. He wants this film to be big, loud, and noisy. That's what he told me. I'm with him 100%. I want this film to be big, loud, and noisy.
That's what we say about Kins all the time. Yeah,
I love that.
And sorry, go ahead. No,
I was gonna ask. You've already told us a little bit about Joel, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners know who he is. But could you fill everybody else in?
Yeah, Joel Silver is considered the father of ultimate Frisbee. He is a remarkable individual who took this sport that he learned at a summer camp in 1968, brings it back to his high school in Maplewood, New Jersey. And Joel is a guy, even at that time, that when he had an idea to do something, he was going to do it, and he get it done. So sick. And he did it with flash, and he did it with style, and he printed. This is actually kind of a later version, but like this rule set just looks cool, right? So like they came up with this idea. They took this it's like a great printing, and this wasn't the earlier one that Joel did. Looks even better. Joel Silver took this game that they played, and he decided to promote it and make it into a spectacle, as not a spectacle, but more like a kind of a shtick that was like really awesome. So he had the rules printed up. They made the shirts that said CHS Varsity Frisbee Team, even though they weren't a varsity thing at all. He did that on purpose, and he did it. And he had the photo. Like, okay, I have a photo of the first ever CHS Varsity Frisbee Team, and in a gym. And I'm
is that one of the ones you sent me?
No, because I'm like, where did this gym photo came from? The most famous one is they're on the parking lot, right? And Joel's smiling. He's got this trophy up. You'll find it. It's everywhere. I asked somebody, I'm like, so Joel, why is this gym photo? What year is this? I'm like, oh, Joel had that taken, and then he didn't like it. And so he had them get the shirts again 2 months later, go out to the parking lot and redo the photograph because he didn't like the first one.
Wow.
And he's right. So everything Joel did for this sport, like, kicked it off to the next level. And Joel Silver then graduated high school, goes on to Lafayette College, goes to NYU, and he's always going to be involved in film. And he becomes the father of the modern action film. And when I say the father of it, he is a big-time Hollywood heavyweight producer. He produces 48 Hours, which, if anybody knows the 80s, that movie, there was Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. It just blast off the genre of buddy cop movie. He goes on to produce Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, Matrix. Joel Silver is, to him, the enormity of Ultimate Frisbee in our worldwide appeal, everything we've done for where Joel has gone in his career and where he is now. We are a small little thing still.
It's insane. It was just like a little thing he did in high school.
Yeah.
Does he have any involvement? Like, does he even like know? Like, what's his involvement in the sport now? Just like not at all.
Joel came out to the to this year, this Nationals 2019 in San Diego. So they USAU brought him out. Lepler interviewed him. He spoke. It was the 40th anniversary of the sport, so they brought a bunch of people. He talked about the sport. So he saw it at Nationals in 2019. Yeah. In the history of our sport, that was a class in 1970 at Columbia High School. They are called the Originals. And it was the class below them. It was their younger brothers, essentially, and sisters, honestly, because it was pretty diverse. It was the graduating class in 1972, so 2 years younger, that saw this game, started playing it, thought it was pretty awesome, and kind of took it at face value. Like, to Joel and his class, it was sort of a cross between a joke and a performance and also a sport. But it was like, I mean, there already were all these sports. Like, you can't just make a sport up, right? So, but the class of 72 was like, oh, this is a sport. And so they kind of rolled with it. So everyone from the class of 1970, none of those people play. Everyone from the class of 72 has a pretty good history of playing. They all went to colleges and started teams. They promoted teams. They started a New Jersey Frisbee high school conference. So that class of 72, they all are still involved in the sport, whereas that class of 70 really isn't as much.
Mm-hmm. And then quickly, if you haven't mentioned already, why is the title The Lot?
I went to the Hall of Fame ceremony in 2022 for Columbia High School, and Johnny Hines, they're rededicating the plaque in the lot to Johnny Hines, Buzzy Hellring, who tragically passed away in 1971, and Joel Silver. So those three people wrote their original rules, right? And they're honoring Johnny. Buzzy's sister Heidi was there, and some other folks from those early teams. And it's a pretty cool event, and I'm filming for the documentary. And at some point, the current class of the CHS players, right? That's a great high school program at Columbia, right? So the CHS players of CHS VFT, the boys team, and Sparkle Merchant, the girls team, are there. And I asked one of the girls, Sydney, might have been Sydney Mannion, honestly, who's a Team USA player, right? I say, hey, isn't it cool, being on the parking lot where this whole sport originated, because that's where we went out to that's where the plaque is on the rock on this parking lot in New Jersey, right? It's the senior parking lot for the high school.
Yeah.
It's filled with like potholes. It's like in bad shape.
My dad made us take a picture there one time.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. The whole team.
The birthplace of Ultimate.
So I asked if it was Sydney or someone else. I can't remember. I say, isn't it cool? Hey, isn't it cool being on this parking lot? She says, yeah, but it's not a great place to play Ultimate. And I'm like, well, why would you play Ultimate here now? I mean, they played it back then because it was asphalt and it was under the lights, and you would play there now.
I mean, that's what you do in high school. When I was in high school, I played all pickup sports on the street. That's just what you do. Yeah,
but you know what she told me? She said, we don't have access to field space because we're not a varsity sport. So in the wintertime, we have to practice on the parking lot. And that's when I knew I had a story. And I was like, oh, hey, wait a second here. There's something wrong here, but something right and something wrong at the same time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next for the lot? What time frame are we looking at to finish up the project, and how can people reach out and help and find out more?
Yeah, so welcome to the lot.com is the website for we're going to do more public facing stuff. If you want to have me on again, we could show some stuff. I could put some clips up. I can make a clip for you, stuff like that. People are interested in it. we got a lot of good stuff. It's important to note that, you know, we're tracking Columbia High School today, right? And from 1972, and there's a little bit of conjunction there because like the New York Gridlock played a game last year at Columbia High School, so we love seeing that. This disc behind me is actually from the PUL championship game in Philadelphia. We were there filming some of that, just like we were at Salt Lake City for UFA. So like, there's a lot going on there. But Welcome to the Lot is where we're at. When you want to make a feature documentary that has the aspirations that this film does, and deservedly so, which is like we're trying to capture what this sport is and what it means, right? It's not, and the story is all important. Like at the end of the day, if I don't have a good story to tell and I don't tell it well, who cares? You know, it's like, and this isn't like an small thing. It's not an insular thing. You know, we want to show the world a little something special. So it's a $1 million film, I think is the best way to put it. You know, we're going to get $1 million to make this film. Maybe. Will it be awesome when we get $1 million? Yeah. Well, you know, but the budget's not small. So I have to continue to find, I should say. We have a lead investor who is tied to the UFA and is somebody I've known for a while, who just sees what I see and sees what I was telling you, which is like, this film is going to help the whole of the sport. I don't care what your views are on the sport. You know, some people want to keep the sport to themselves. I think that is the only thing that might be affected, because this film wants to be able to tell the story of the sport to a large audience, and we need the money to make that happen, where you hit kind of like escape velocity. So I have a high level, there's a producer named Dan Chalfin who's involved with this film now because he saw the potential of it. He's got 3 films at Sundance right now. So, you know, we're dealing with some high level stuff, and we'll continue to do so. So for anybody who's listening right now, let's talk. You know, I know a lot of people have some money on the sidelines of this sport. The time is now. We need to put it to get this film to be awesome. So it's going to happen one way or another. And, you know, the more I can get kind of going in one direction, the better off we're all going to be with it.
What happened to Wham-O's involvement with the sport? And do you know like what their involvement is today, other than the fact that we can use the word Frisbee now?
Sure. Wham-O has a complex relationship with the disc sports. This is what is big in our story. Like in the 1970s, Frisbee was a fad, and it was just Frisbee, but it was more than a fad. They were promoting it. It was a big seller. You know, the Frisbee itself traces back earlier. It's the 50s and 60s, honestly. But by the 70s, it became like a thing where everybody kind of knew it. They're advertising on TV, and Wham-O decided to host all the Frisbee events at the Rose Bowl as like a big promotional event starting in 1974. So they call it the World Championships of Frisbee, and we got a lot of videos from this. All this stuff is going to be in the documentary, by the way, because it's pretty interesting. And the sports that at the time are guts, disc golf, freestyle, disc dogs, maximum time aloft, distance, and like accuracy, right? So it's sort of a pentathlon of disc sports, right? They keep doing this every year, but it's pretty clear at some point that the zealots of our sport and the zealots of disc golf are the ones that are making the most progress, I think. And so Steady Ed, he was working at the marketing arm of Wham-O at the time, the International Frisbee Association, basically tells him, hey, I think disc golf is the way to go. You guys should get on board with this because this sport's going to go someplace. Put some money into it. And Wham-O says no. So he says, peace, I'm out. And he goes and develops the basket for disc golf. Our sport essentially does the same thing. Like, we're like, hey, Ultimate is this great thing. You should promote Ultimate. Ultimate should be a big thing. You can make this into a sport, a league or whatever. And they say, no, they try to buy it. Maybe they try to reinvent their own version of it and then sell that. Doesn't work. And so our sport says, all right, we're going to TK, and then forms the UPA in 1979. With the seeds were 78, 77. So, and then Wham-O was a toy company. So they didn't need this. In their mindset, they're not out there trying to develop a sports league. So I could see how it didn't really get into the heads enough to see that, like, wow, we have these sports. Like, they always promoted the sporty aspects of what you could do with a Frisbee, but because they thought that was clever and cool, and it was going to sell more discs, But at the end of the day, they had the Super Ball and the Slinky and the water slide and the slip and slide, and not the Slinky. They had a lot of stuff going on, and they were getting old, and they sold the company in 82. So 82, Wham-O gets sold to a Northern California toy company, and that's it. It's the end of story, basically. Like, the Frisbee is just, by this point, just sort of like a thing that we all know about, but the sense of the sport that goes along with it was lost. Our people wanted Wham-O and wanted the world to see. Irv talks about this a lot in the documentary. Irv Kalb is the first dominant player in Ultimate Frisbee. Comes out of Columbia High School, goes out west, absolutely crushes in the sport, and then he suffers a career-ending back spinal injury playing Ultimate. He gets hit by 2 defenders, and he can't play to this. He has trouble, like, walking to this day. He's in pain, and he was the lifeblood of the sport, and he really kind of was like what the sport was. And when he talked to Irv tells us that I wanted people to know that this object you see, this Frisbee, the sport you play with, this Frisbee is Ultimate. That's what this Frisbee is for. And that's all I wanted to do. He's like, I don't care about, it's like, he loves the pro leagues, no problem with money, not money, but he wasn't about the money. He wanted people to play the sport, and he wanted Wham-O to see that, and Wham-O to promote that and get people playing Ultimate Frisbee with their Frisbees.
You sent like a bunch of cool promo stuff of the old ads. Those are sick. It is really good history.
Yeah.
How did you find all of that material?
I will not reveal that, although it's
trusted sources.
There's a lot of it, and it's I think people that know, and there's let me tell you, there's a guy that I know. I think that the fact that, again, that, like, we don't, it's just time. It's time for this film to be made. It's time for all this amazing history to be made public. It's time for this stuff to exist somewhere. I'm doing a little bit with Alta Archives. If you see Alta Archives on Instagram, I'll put up stuff there.
Oh, that's you. I like that page.
Yeah. That's me. I wish I could do, honestly, more, but, like, there's so much stuff. It's like it's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw those recent videos we shot at in Worlds. That's Chuck Cleary shooting. He's amazing. But we're shooting for the documentary, and
we were just talking about Chuck.
Yeah.
With Kalakovic. I haven't released that episode yet, but
you got Chuck and Nathan on the same episode?
No, not on the same episode, but we were just talking about other videographers. Chuck is the man. I would
put them together. It'll
this
be
is
hilarious.
Now back-to-back episodes. I've talked about Chuck, but I actually went to college with him, so I've known him for a long, long time.
Chuck is an amazing cinematographer. Amazing cinematographer. He's done amazing stuff. I mean, he and I were there. We were down in Brisbane for like 5 days, and we shot just sick stuff.
Tell us a little bit about your transition. Like, you've been the historian of the sport now for quite some time. Like, what sparked that interest, and what have been the iterations of that?
I think our sport really, like, doesn't, it's hard to say the story in the sport when, like, no one really knows what the history of the sport is. So I think that's kind of funny, but for sure, like, I moved to New York, and I wanted to play with, like, the top team. So when I came to New York, I came for film and television. And I started hunting down the top teams, and I found New York with Dobbins and those guys, but it was the end of the reign there. So they still picked me up, and it was a team called Blood, and Kenny was on the team, and Benji Sadi, and all these amazing players. We didn't make nationals. We lost in the game to go to, at that time, it was a team led by Fortunate Mueller and Snapple, if I recall. That's who we lost to. And I was a pretty good player, but I was like a big fish in a small pond coming out of Indiana. And so like, those New York guys can kind of like get mean and throw down, and I kind of can too. It's cool. But one day, coming out of summer, it wasn't entirely a fit for me to play at that level necessarily. I think I could roll with him, but I wasn't super fast and as fit as I could be. But one day, Adam Zagoria, like out of a summer league thing, is like, hey, they'll pay you to write if you go to tournaments and cover tournaments. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. He's like, yeah, no, the UPA needs writers. And I was like, well, all right. So I sent them like an email, or I called 1-800-GET-H or something. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, you want to go to Florida to cover nationals? And I was like, yeah, great. So I went down to Florida to cover club nationals, and it was all 2 divisions at the time, men's and women's. And I just covered everything. And it was not a dull moment. I mean, those teams were lit. The action, I mean, the best athletes ever. I mean, it's like a magic ticket to go to nationals and not play almost, because there's no spectators there at the time, even today, hardly, right? And so like, I'm like in a paradise of like action, and I got to like write it all down and cover it, and like, yeah. So I started like that, and I never stopped, essentially. Like I started posting live reports to RSD. So I was called at one point like the ESPN of Ultimate by Mike G, of all people.
Mike G.
Because I was just like, before Ultimate World, we couldn't broadcast live. The stream, like the broadcasting of the games kind of sucked, because whenever you get a DVD or whatever, until Ultimate Village kind of broke that through, it was like too late. Like, who wants to watch like nationals from like 5 months ago? It's like so dumb. So I was like giving updates, and my writing was coming out early. So I kind of like kicked butt with that. And then I started covering tournaments around the country, and then the book came calling, and that was like the history book that really kind of, I think, I'll show you one of them here. Oh shit, actually. It's actually.
Dude, I remember that. Never forget that book, man.
What year was that published?
The book we did 2000, believe it or not, I'm boosting up my laptop on it. It's 2004.
That's funny.
Oh, really?
Wow, that's weird.
So it was a while ago, but
yeah.
like, this is that. So like we did this.
Yeah. So that was like the first year that Ulti Village also had their first, what they call it, Rob called it Disc 1, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to say it's Canadian Rob, but I think that he has a different name, right? Rob was down there like on, he was staying on the ladders and stuff, and he was like a one-man band. He was like doing everything that we do in the sport, which is like solo operation. It's like, it was like Charlie in the early days too. No, not much different. Yeah. So that's how I started, and really, I kind of never left. I mean, after that 2004 book, I did. I had all this material that I just thought was like really funny, and I was like playing mixed at the time, and my girlfriend was on. We were playing together, and I was on the Bashing Pinatas for a little while, and that's a fucking blast of a team, super fun. And so we did, and I had another friends on a Philly team, Kids, you might know, called Germ Circus. They're a bunch.
I never heard of the Germ Circus. I'll be honest. I feel pretty good about some of my Philly teams, but
they were crazy, man.
Oh my god!
By the way, my favorite mixed team name ever, I think, is Holes and Poles.
Holes and Poles was a really good team.
That would never fly today, man. That'd never fly. I don't think they would let Holes and Poles
final
compete.
Holes and Poles versus the Germ Circus.
the least sanitary finals in Ultimate history.
Oh my god!
I mean, you've been to Poultry Days, right? There's a little bit of there's some teams that also a little bit uncouth,
I've never been to Poultry Days. I feel like I need to get out more. I kind of want to ask you. No, I haven't been. I want to ask you a little bit about the book, though. Like, what was it like writing that? Like, how'd you go and gather all this information, pick the people that were going to help you do it?
Especially back then.
Yeah.
This is the second book is this one. Totally a joke, by the way. The cover, this was intentionally tongue in cheek. So when we did the blue one, you just had to do the work. Like, we just had to call a bunch of people. Like, I had 88 to present day, so 88 to 2004, and Zags had the 68 to 88. So I was like in love because I had Dog, I had the remnants of New York, and I had Molly Goodwin, and I had Godiva, and I had Fury, and I had Santa Barbara Condors, and I had Santa Barbara Black Tide. I had a lot of great stuff to get into, and you just do it. I mean, I don't know. I loved everything about the sport, and so I was like, you just have to like call people up. Like this is pretty interesting. Like I wanted to know how their offense became so good, right? So I'm like,
yeah,
Jim, tell me what's up with the offense. And he was like, well, it came from this tournament in Mother's Day when we only had 8 players and we had to save legs. So we just played this like weird zone. And then our entire goal was just score on offense. And then maybe we can win. And so he wrote this article on that turn. I'm like, well, write that for me and I'll put it in the book. So it was kind of like that, and we came up with the sidebar idea. We had to hunt and find the photos. It was a team effort, Joe and Jello and Zags and me and some other folks, and I would just go through endless edits, honestly. Like I was reading Adam's chapters and he would read my chapters. And that way we could kind of like, tell each other what we're missing or what worked and what didn't work.
I really love this kind of stuff because it was the same kind of thought I had when Knob was talking to us about like some international team running the host stack. And like when you hear the origin of it, it really just like simplifies everything. Like we can get over here like kind of lost in the sauce of like what offense, what blah, 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 like what the fuck are we going to do? And it's like these people were like when Knob was talking about the host stack, it's like, well, they had 3 good throwers and like 4 dudes who were like good at fucking running deep and like couldn't throw for shit. So you fucking put 4 of them downfield and the 3 in the backfield, and you're like, I mean, that makes so much sense. And we're over here trying to do fucking like 8 plus 8 divided by 2 to the 4th power type shit.
If you score in 2 throws, you have to run less.
Yeah, it's just it's just right. It's just so interesting. Like when you hear I mean, I think that's why like the history is so valuable too, because I think it puts everything in helps that put everything in perspective.
When you understand why they did it.
Totally, it's really refreshing, honestly.
It's just speaking about like our nationals last year. It was like we tried to do all this stuff, and then in consolation, we're like, all right, let's center it to Kins. Let's put Quinn in the lane, and Toby will just go deep, and he'll fucking throw it to him.
Yeah,
it was working. Oh my god.
Some order.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe we'll throw deep to Noah.
Yeah, maybe we'll swap one player. But
I had this moment when I'm covering nationals 2000. I think it was 4, and it was Boston Godiva. Lady Godiva's like third. They'd won 3 in a row, and they're in the semifinals versus the Portland Schwa, and Schwa had kind of come out of nowhere, and they had some girls that come out of UNCW. They were leading the team, and they were kind of scrappy. And Godiva was like, I mean, there's like 5 Hall of Famers on this team. Molly Goodwin is no nonsense, the best player you'll ever see play Ultimate Frisbee. She is like sick. She played football as a quarterback in Nebraska with the boys until they discovered she was a girl and kicked her off the team. That's
like a fucking movie plot.
I know.
That's like legit like a movie plot.
And then she takes a team to champion.
Holy shit.
She was all business, and she could play. Now she runs a women's full contact football team in Boston that wins all the time.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so she's no nonsense. She won 11 championships. So anyway, Schwa's playing her.
11?
And Schwa beats them in semifinals, and I'm the reporter, and so I come up to like Molly Goodwin, and I'm like, Molly, I need a quote from you, and she is like laser balling me with her eyes, like we're cool now, but she hated me for a long time because I got a quote from her, and she was just kind of like angry or something like that. But talking to this point of the whole story was Schwa. I asked Schwa, like, how did you beat the 3-time champion? And they said, we just looked at each other and said, this is an easy game. It's throw and catch. So let's just go out and throw and catch.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
that's all it is.
It is so beautiful.
I'm looking back at the history. So looks like that was probably 1999. Looks like Godiva had won 3 in a row. You're right. No, 4 in a row. And
Yeah, then Fury wins that year, and then they win 3 more.
Then they win 3 more. Then Godiva wins 3 more.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Fucking Godiva. No, this is really cool, Tony, because like we had Knob on, and it was so nice to just hear like all this. I like just like anything, honestly, like any kind of story, just like it's very entertaining to me, and it's just like because it's like what we do, and I don't know, like filling in the gaps of like this history, and like you said, it's like it's not super easy to find these types of things, and so like one of the things we're like trying to do, like one of the ideas that sparked from having Knob on was like kind of this like ultimate segment, you know, where we just get a bunch of people from different decades and have them on the pod and just talk about, you know, these types of things. Cause I think like those stories are super interesting. Like, what do you have to say about that? Like, what advice would you have to like who to get, what kind of stuff, you know, to look into? Just anything really.
I could endless. Talk to me after the pod.
No. Start. Go.
Man, you got to talk to. You should get Patrick Vanderwalk on and Sophia to find out the start of Beach. I think that's pretty huge. You know, the founding of Beach coming out of Europe. You know, we had a founder in America too, Tim Finan. He passed away. I think that's a pretty big thing. It's a pretty big deal. Sophia's running Beulah now. Those two we try to get on the podcast that we had for a bit. Talking to Glow would be amazing. Gloria Lust Williams, she was an early pioneer player she played both Godiva and Fury. She's pretty sick. The early pioneers, which I'm shooting a lot with for my documentary, you know, some of these folks are fascinating. I mean, Irv Kalb, I think, has an amazing story. Stork, everyone knows. I think Stork has talked a lot, so I don't think you're getting anything necessarily new with that. If you can get Dobbins on, you get Dobbins on. I mean, you're not going to fail with that. If you can get Molly Goodwin on, man, congratulations to you, because that's a hard one. I would pay to see that. Let's see who else is out there.
That's the one. That's the one we want. We want Molly.
You get Molly.
I think that would just be so awesome. Holy shit.
She's amazing, honestly. But there's a lot of amazing people in the sport. I think Charles Kerr. You should get Charles Kerr on.
He started the Callahan, right?
Yep. I sent you some stuff. That poster behind me over here, that's from him. He did a lot. I think another thing, we don't know our history, is just that Charles Kerr did so much stuff to kind of break through and pioneer the whole observer system that we're using today is because of him. And he did it because he didn't want, he and Will Deaver came up with it to start in college. They didn't want the cheaters to go to having hardcore referees. So he came up with a system that would preserve spirit of the game, and it would do it with referees. It's kind of genius. Like, it was like a bull between the horns moment when they were like, you know, we need to speed up the game. We need to stop all these stupid arguments. You know, if it's a foul or not a foul. We need some hard and fast rulings, but we still need the players to do it first, because I believe in spirit of the game. So let's have the players call it, and then the referee gets to come in. If they can't agree in a minute's time, then the observer comes in. We'll call it observer, and that person decides which call to go. And now you got to start playing. You got to think about like different strategies of how you might want to play this. So let me give you an example of how this showed out in pure genius. It was a college final. It was 14-13, Carleton versus Colorado, I think. And the disco, it might have been semifinals.
9?
I don't know. It's like earlier. It's like 99 again, or 98 or something. But it's the first year of this new rule system. The disc goes up into the end zone, and a guy goes up to catch it. He's sandwiched by 2 players, and he calls a foul. And now you have a decision to make as the defender. You're like, do you contest it and then go to this referee dude, right, who could then rule, yes, it's a foul, and the disc stays on the goal line. Or you can say, I don't know, let's send it back. Because the Carlton guy is like, I don't know, I call a foul. And at the time, you could always say, send it back, right? Like, that's how he played it. It was always send it back, right? Okay, contest, blah, blah. And this is what kind of ruined the game for a while. So he had the opportunity to send it back. And he said, one of the defenders said, no, I don't think I fouled you. Goes to the observer, and the observer says, yes, that was a foul. And the disc now is placed on the goal line. They score instantly, game over. And now you have to really think twice about fouling, because it's not going to be an automatic send back. You have to think twice about what decision you're going to say. Like, do you want to contest it, or do you want to agree with the offensive guy? Like, okay, he thinks it might not be a foul. It might not be. We can contest it, send it back. They would have gained 60 yards going back the other direction and had a chance to still tie the game up. So anyway, genius system. Kerr came up with it, and came up with the Callahan Award, catching it in the end zone, which is controversial, and it wasn't called the Callahan Award. It only Callahan goal. It only got called that because it was associated with the new rule set with those observers. And so we just started calling it a Callahan goal because we didn't know what else there was no name to it. It was just like, that was just in the rule set, A lot there. Yeah.
Was it named after Henry Callahan? That like the goal? Did he like catch a lot of them or something?
No. Charles Kerr and Deaver came up with this new rule set, and they called it the experimental rules, or X rules. And he contacts Tom Kennedy, who was the UPA #1, right? The founder of the Ultimate Players Association. And he says, Tom, I want to name this TK. Everybody calls him TK. Not your TK. This is TK from the Condors. So he says, TK, I want to name this. I'm starting a new rule system called the experimental rules. And I also want to start a College Player of the Year award that recognizes the best college player, also the most spirited college player. And also you have to like push for the award, like actually like promote it on RSD, which is kind of fascinating. And I'm going to call it the Kennedy. And Tom says, TK says, he writes back to Kerr. Charles has sent me this recently, and he says, I told the family of Henry Callahan that I would do something for them one day. Like Henry Callahan was tragically killed in a robbery in Colorado when he was working at a bar, right? And he was a player for Dark Star in Eugene in Oregon, right? So TK says, no, you should name it after Henry Callahan. And so Kerr says, great, we have a name. It's the Callahan Award. And now the rule set kind of came along with it. That was the experimental rules. They didn't have a name for it. They're like, let's just call it the Callahan rules. And in the rules was this defensive interception in the end zone that would result in a goal. They just put that into the rules. There was no name for it. It was like a defensive interception in the end zone, right? And so it just started to be called the Callahan goal.
The Callahan rules, Callahan goal.
And Callahan Award.
That's crazy.
What do you think of the Callahan these days? Like what it's kind of turned into? Like it's kind of like a who can make the best video type situation, which like relates to the best player because they're making a lot of like highlight plays, but like generally it just goes to the best like edited video kind of.
Look, I have not followed, like, I don't watch all those videos because it's like, I feel like I probably have better things to do because, like, some of them are great and some of them are not great. And I'm like, okay, well, I could probably do something else with my time. But I'll tell you what Kerr sent me, which I was kind of fascinated by. And this is, I think, maybe I even said this to you guys, but, like, he wrote in the original rule set, he's like, people always are, like, voting behind the scenes and making little deals about who's going to win what. So he's like, I'm going to put this all out in the front. To win the Callahan Award, you have to actually promote yourself. Like you have to promote yourself on RSD. Like it's written into there. He says, especially a good public relations staff. Achilles, Muhammad Ali, Spider-Man, superstars all, each got great PR.
And he actually said RSD back then too.
Yep. To win the Kennedy Award, to win the Kennedy Trophy, a player will need literate champions, writers to tout them while simultaneously reaming rivals. In other words, to win the Kennedy, players not only have to walk the walk, they and the supporters will have to talk the talk on RSD. As no candidate is likely to be seen by every team in the country, judges will have to cast their ballots based on what they see on the field and read on the net. It's literally written into the
I love it.
rule.
Okay, it's in the spirit of the award.
But you know what I like
Spirit of the
about that? What we don't have the reaming. So like the next awesome Callahan video needs to have some total bloopers of the top. Like,
Yes.
Can we do that for Toby's? Like whoever the best players are in the country, we're just gonna show total shit videos of them like dropping it or like just
Let's
doing
be honest. It's the next step. Like that's
100%. Like let's go. But it's written in the thing. Like that's actually would be so funny. I love hearing you talk about the film. Like you're so passionate about it, and it really fires me up to just hear you talk about like telling the whole story. Because it's true. It's just like makes me want to learn more. Like now I just want to know more about like the people who started this sport, like not even knowing really about like this whole, I'm sure my dad like told me about it and I wasn't listening, but like this whole like Joel like story and that kind of stuff. And just like how he did all this and created it, like so much of that resonates with me. Wonder like through doing all this, like where do you think, or what are some of the things that stood out to you as important that the sport maybe has not, the sport could do better, like opportunities that the sport as a whole could do better to, not have those numbers be staggering or things like that?
We need our story to be told, because that's going to kind of give us an overall thing. We need money. It's embarrassing that we the sport hasn't been able to secure sponsorship and funding and gotten money off the sidelines. That money needs to go into youth. I think everyone's on the same page here. I think I sent you some of my ideas on this. I mean, it just kind of came out of a conversation with Kevin, the USAU CEO. I was like, hey, what about 1 million discs? Why don't you have an idea? Why don't you give out 1 million discs to kids by 2027? Like just boom, do that, And then the key is we need to put the money also to giving out discs doesn't do it. Like that's a cool thing and that's great. But like I'm teaching youth ultimate here in my town in New Paltz, and we have a cool little program going, but you need to keep at it and you need to have competition. Like if they're just going to throw a disc around, hey man, that's cool. We play indoors. I got like, we have 4th graders and 5th graders and 6th graders. I mean, we're starting young because you got to start young. You have to start. You got to start in 4th and 5th grade and 3rd grade. But they got to have somebody else to play against. And so my other idea was like, why not have just USAU say, we want to start 500 youth tournaments. 500 tournaments in places that don't already have tournaments. You're not going to start them in Pada. You're not going to start them in Seattle. Like get other places, Tulsa, Oklahoma, get a tournament, let's get one in South Bend, Indiana, youth only, youth focused. It's got to stay alive for 3 years. And just, it doesn't matter the level of competition. Like the kids need something where they can go and compete and be like, oh, hey, it's a sport, like, okay, we got to beat Bremen, we got to go play Elkhart. Let's go beat them, or lose, whatever. It's not about winning or losing, especially for kids. That's why this sport is so adaptable. Like, our son plays travel baseball. He plays travel soccer, and all those sports are the same as our sport. They're like, we don't care if you win or lose. We're out here having fun and doing things for this or for that. At that age, which is ironic because that's the reason that we are this way is because we were a teenage sport. Like we grew up with these values because we're kids at heart, we just like codified it, we're just like, okay, let's make that a rule, yeah, so those are my ideas. We got to get money off the sidelines. We got to get money into the sport, and we got to get into the youth.
USA Ultimate's bandwidth is limited, right? For
Correct.
A lot of reasons, and I wonder what sacrifices could be made at other levels to shift some focus over there. Like I love the idea of 500 youth tournaments, or it's just some sort of infrastructure, some sort of league structure. Quinn, if I told you club wouldn't exist in 5 years because USA Ultimate shifted their focus to youth, what are the first things that come to mind? I mean, I'm sure you're so invested.
There's no reason to kill club. No reason.
I mean, I'd be pissed.
Mikey wants to
man.
kill Club.
I'd be pissed because like all the time and effort that I've put into it, I'm all like, it's funny because you say that, but it's like all the kids coming up like these days like don't even know who the fuck Johnny Bravo is anyway.
Yeah, my
Like,
first
they know
thought
who
was
the
like, well,
Summit
I'll just
are.
play Summit then.
But they know, yeah, exactly. But it's like, but to me, it's like Johnny Bravo is like my pride and joy. It's like my life. So like for kids to be like, yeah, I don't even know what that like. What is that? I know what the Summit is. Like, you play for a different team than the Summit,
Yeah.
or just like all that history just like dying. It's like
There's no reason to kill Club though. Like,
yeah.
I get so okay. So the question right is like, clearly USAU's focus and resources can really only go towards running the series, right? That makes sense. I mean, they can call it TCT. Maybe they save some money that way. Like, do you need TCT? I don't think
No.
so. Like,
Definitely not.
so I mean, give that back to the tournaments that used to be TCT. Like what I just shown you about where Dog came up with their offense was Mother's Day in Philadelphia. You know, like the tournaments will run themselves. Like you don't need the Triple Crown tournament. That's just kind of silly, honestly. You can still get rankings and power ratings points or whatever from these other, just assign it to other tournaments and have them go make money off of it or something, you know, like that's an easy one. So get rid of the TCT. That saves you some effort and resources, put it towards youth and somebody unlock money. I mean, there's money there somewhere. Like, can we get a sponsor? There's gotta be some visionary that says, listen, we don't have the
I think
eyeballs
especially
now.
if you pushed like that youth initiative, like if you brand it, like when you say 1 million discs in the hands of kids by 2027, like that's like that is sort of like
It's like printing out the
slogan that you
varsity
can get behind.
T-shirts, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Like make it a thing. Like you can't like
Those
it's gotta-
T-shirts, by the way, are sick. I want to
Yeah,
print
100%.
those.
And you just gotta like
have
make
my
it a
own.
thing before it's a thing. What do you think about like, you know, what do you just think about like the UFA and Pro Ultimate and like, you know, what they're trying to do with getting more spectators, stuff like that?
I mean, honestly, I like to go back and ask the pioneers, right? So I'll ask them all the time, like, what do you think of Professional Ultimate? And they're like, hey, that's cool. Like, I mean, it's just like, yeah, that looks great. Or sometimes they'll say like, yeah, this is what we always visioned. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, we always wanted to play in front of fans. This is awesome. You know, it's just, to me, it's a no-brainer. I think I got to be careful here because we're talking to the UFA and we're talking to Wham-O for this film as potential partners. I love a lot of it. I mean, I called games for the Empire, right? So I was an Empire color announcer for like 5 years, right? I take my kids to the games, man. They love it. I mean, there's nothing more. The most exciting games I have seen on TV were the PUL championships of like semis of like 3 years ago, because of the time clock, because of overtime, because of the crowds, and because of the baller players out there. Like the PUL teams just get stacked, like the top teams, because you take like the best talent on the East Coast versus the best talent in the South versus Columbia, versus it was like Atlanta, Raleigh, New York, Columbia that year. And it was like New York was like basically Brute Squad plus like Amp or something. It was crazy. So that's amazing Ultimate. Like you can't get better than that. And so I love the pro leagues. I think that like the risk is and the reward is, how broy do you want to go? Like how much do you want to
For sure.
how much do you want to imitate the other leagues or try to carve your own, you know?
I 100% agree. And I like not I mean, I think sure there's things that you can take from other sports, maybe it's a good idea, whatever. But I think it's important to not lose like, you know, a lot of this stuff.
Sight of where
because it's like
where we came from.
We can't just become like every other sport. Like we're playing it because of all these things that we love about it. And I think like I think that's where like this story is really interesting, because like, what are those things? What are the things that like were really making people fall in love about playing Ultimate and just like the game? And then like, let's hold on to those things. And then everything else, like, let's, you know, try to make it, you know, as popular as it can be, because it's like, we love this sport. People want to do it, put more time into it. I mean, at least that's like, you know, my dream.
Yeah.
So like, let's try to get it out there. And I do feel like I agree. Like, I think I don't think everything that the UFA does is perfect, but I like the fact for me that they try to get spectators and try to get more people watching, and like people can follow the sport, and it just
we had
feels
asked
right with
we asked Isaac Saul what he thinks purists need to let go of and what they need to hold on to. But what I like about the lot and learning more about our history is we can be informed by what sort of the old heads, the purists,
the old heads
really
were not purists. That's the thing we got to learn. There was a zealotry, and some of them wanted to make sure that the principles of spirit of the game, before it was called spirit of the game, did survive. Others wanted it to be not commercialized, but expected it to be commercialized.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to remember the earliest rule set had referees, so it was never against. We were never against referees. I mean, there's a referee in the. Yeah, there's a great photo of the.
That's interesting.
Yeah, 1972, very first game we played, Rutgers Princeton, first college game. There's a referee on the field. Now you talk to the guys, the referees, Dave Lewan, and he says, "Yeah, I was there, but I never blew the whistle. They never used us." Yeah, so
right.
That's also who we are.
Yeah.
So I mean, the natural progression here is asking you what you think about the current referee, because in like my opinion, spirit of the game is, I don't even know if it's an opinion. It's far less prominent in the UFA, if it's even there to a certain extent, especially with the players that don't play club. Like, it's still there because there's, the majority of people are still club players, but a lot of players that don't play club, it's just like, it's not really a thing. So I'm kind of curious on your perspective there.
Yeah, I don't know.
You disagree, Kins?
I don't fully agree for sure.
I always thought that when I went to the AUDL championships in Montreal, they mic'd up the head referee, and it was Toronto versus whichever bow team was on that year, San Francisco Dogfish or something. Oh, sorry,
the Flamethrowers.
And the I'll never forget this. So the head referee is mic'd to the stadium. It's it's a Canadian crowd. But they don't like Toronto necessarily. But anyway, at some point there's a call on the field, and the referee says, "Wheat, whistle," and then he goes, "Wheat. The call is overturned by the integrity rule," right? And the whole crowd just goes, "Yeah!" Like they cheered it because that was cool. And I think that that's what I would love to see the UFA kind of like. You maybe promote that a little bit more, or at least celebrate it in a fun way,
I agree, and I agree with that. But I feel like to what you were saying, Quinn, like before you'd say there's no or like not or like there's a lack of spirit of the game in the pro league. First, I would have to know like what even the spirit of the game is.
Yeah, if you want,
what I mean.
There's a lot of different ways to define it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
From looking at spirit of the game from a perspective of observers, referees, advisors, I feel like it's.
But what is it? Like what is that person? Like what?
Upholding.
I think
the rules.
I feel like we've rehashed this one a lot too, and it is murky. There are definitions. Honestly, I wouldn't even call them definitions. There's a page dedicated to it on USA Ultimate's website. I think for the purposes of this discussion, it's like not intentionally cheating, listening to the other party's perspective in a calm manner, a respectful manner, and then making an informed decision on the play. And then it obviously branches out into other things, but I think that is what at least Quinn is asking about.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this before. What Tony, what you were just describing, I do like the idea of sort of celebrating it, like the integrity rule, as something kind of unique to the sport, and how it kind of galvanizes crowds and people.
Mm-hmm.
I have also said at times I do not like the integrity rule because what I like about referees, or when you introduce referees, it means I don't have to be angry at my opponent. Like it's the third party. Like I just have to go with what has been called. But then when you know someone fucking hacked the shit out of you, and inevitably the ref does not call it, and you look at that motherfucker and you're like, why didn't you use the integrity rule there? And then it almost becomes worse than in like the USA Ultimate rule set, because in USA Ultimate you're calling that foul, you have the discussion.
Preach.
And then, maybe the observer makes a ruling or not. But there's what I think Isaac was talking about, other guests have talked about, is there's that social pressure from your peers kind of goes away a little bit. And like now it's just a bunch of fury.
And it introduces the perspective of it didn't get called, so it's within the rules. Like that's something I hear people say, like, oh, the ref didn't call it, so I'm not purposely cheating.
Right.
I want to ask you guys, like, how prevalent has that become? Like that was the concerns from like the old guard when AEDL started, was that it could lead to this, and then there was kind of a push to even get the integrity rule out there, and a push from the club players to keep it honest. But after all those years, how you guys are seeing it like that way? Like how common is that?
Depends on the team, for sure.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
So
there's no question in my mind that certain teams do it intentionally.
Yes, and I don't know if this is, for me, it seems like it's either young teams that don't have a lot of club experience, or it's teams that have a lot of players that don't play club at all. But it's definitely team by team, and it definitely happens on a weekly basis in the UFA.
I would think that, like, I suppose that the league should kind of police that. You got to feel like if everybody kind of knows, like, X team is just not really, like, you could review the tape and be like, that was a foul, and
100%.
Yeah, it's like I feel like the league should kind of police that better. Like
in their defense,
that's why I'm not
I do have. I'm optimistic that it will improve, especially like Frito. He lives up the street from me. Maybe I shouldn't say that, because maybe I shouldn't say that one of the UFA refs is my neighbor.
And he refs all of our.
No, they're like so like aware of their bias for us that it goes like against us.
My point being is they are getting better about reviewing things as the ref organization, and I'm forgetting the head ref's name. I think her name is Julie. I don't know if you remember.
I don't know,
Tony.
but 100% after like the first
time.
It was after like the first week or whatever, because I remember I was calling the game of the opener between Salt Lake and DC, and I was trying to be like a little more like commentator in the booth, but I was like, wow, they were marking very aggressively there. Ref not calling it, but they sent a mass blast like email, like the refs are looking for this, like this is how you. And so I don't really worry about it. And I think like with so many of those things with like the, cause for me, like a big part of the spirit is just like, trying super hard, but being honest about it and not trying to like, I suppose like especially hurt people. But I do think, and we've talked about this before, but I do think the like line between like, you shouldn't foul because it's against spirit of the game. I just think that I'm not like fully in on that, because we've talked about examples in other sports where it's like a good foul to do that kind of stuff. I'm just like not in on the fact that like a foul is
against the spirit.
Right. Like you're just trying to win. And if you think that like, you should foul because you don't want to give them the 2 points and you want to send them to the free throw line, I don't think people are like, oh my God, that's so like, no one's like in basketball. Like,
but that's so part of basketball. It's
that's basketball.
Part of Frisbee. Part of Frisbee is to not cheat. Like it
intentionally break,
but they don't even see it as cheating. Like I just don't.
In basketball, they don't, right? They don't in basketball.
Right.
But in Frisbee,
Kins, come on.
It's in the rules that it says you are supposed to, like, a rule is you cannot intentionally cheat. So basketball's rule set does not say you
and
cannot
then we have
intent
to
cheat.
then we have to litigate what cheating means.
I just think
which
it
we
gets
tried to
so
do
gray,
before.
and this is where like I don't know.
Well-
It's hard for me to like buy in on this whole
Instead
thing.
of belaboring this more this episode, maybe I'll move us along a little
belabor
bit.
all
I
day.
do want to briefly mention head official's name. Her name is Julie Gordon, and I do think she does a good job.
Hell yeah, Julie.
And she sends out weekly focuses to definitely all the coaches and the refs. The refs also have specific feedback that they get. While we have you, Tony, I want to ask you, just sort of like as a creator, as like a filmmaker and storyteller, maybe thinking about the future after the lot. What kind of stories do you think should be told? And I'm asking. I want to maybe frame this a little bit more because we also talked about this with Kalakovic. Our plan is to go to Kaimana in February with Benson Dastrup. Do you know Benson?
No.
Benson, he runs Flatball Club, the YouTube channel, and it's mostly just the drone footage of a lot of Frisbee games.
Seen him.
But he wants to start working on like basically short films or short docs of like showcasing personalities and also like some of the I guess classic tournaments like Kaimana, like Windmill, etc. Like, I don't know, what are the big ones? Like, I feel like all the US ones are dead.
I will say that as someone who has, I wrote all those up in the book because I love the stories. We post stuff like that on Ultra Archives. Like Chuck and I will film something and do something like that. Be Ultimate's doing that, right? They're posting pretty cool content. It's a hard road. I mean, we're a small market. I mean, if you love and you have passion, that's great, but as a business plan, it's a terrible business plan. As a hey, let's go talk some cool stuff, hey, maybe, all those things are come out as an amazing tournament. It's super mad fun. You saw some of that stuff coming out of Windmill. Back in the day, I used to go to Paganella for exactly that same reason, which is like, I'm going out to an Italian beach tournament. I'm going to cover the tournament. I'm going to write it ahead of time. I'm going to write it post. I'm going to bring a team. I'm going to party. And it was great. And I called the finals too. But it burned me out after like 5 years. So, I mean, but at the end of the day, I remember Jumpy asking me, he ran the tournament for a number of years. He's like, Tony, what was this all worth? Because Paganello they had gotten so much sponsorship. They had 110 teams. They had Renault sponsoring them. They were giving away a car. They had Sky Sports was covering them, putting the thing out. They had 5,000 fans come out to the finals on a beach. They were killing it. And then it just kind of started to like not kind of fade away a little bit. And he's like, Tony, why was this all for? Because it's like they had visions of this, like literally, honestly becoming a big thing,
Yeah.
And it didn't. And it did and it didn't. It did for Frisbee, and yet the wider world just shrugged its shoulders. And it's like, he's like, what was this all about? And I was like, I don't know, Jumpy. I guess it's just about the friends you make along the way, like our sports, like we're really it's a weird headspace, man. You got to do it because you love it. And, but just don't expect anything else more than that, unless you're making my documentary, which is going to be amazing and blow it off the wall.
I've been getting more and more tired of that, to be honest, that whole thing around the sport in that way, because I feel like it is so amazing and it's been around for so long. Why do we still have to feel like, because to me, what frustrates me about that is like, for the sport to grow and even see like what it could really become, you need to allow people to dedicate more time to it. And you can't, I want to see a sport where people do it for a full time.
We don't have the money.
I know. I understand.
There's no money.
I understand. And it bums me out is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And that's why I like the idea of like, what we were talking about, like this pro, because I want to see a version of the sport where not everyone is working a 9 to 5 and their 9 to 5 is ultimate.
Jody Avirgan, when I was talking to Jody about this film, and I'm like, hey, let's talk to 30 for 30. And he's like, listen, here's part of what I think your storyline is. And when he said this, it stuck with me because it is part of the story. He's like, why do we have this sport that has been its nose pressed up against the window of like all these other sports and kind of the mainstream? And how come we're not getting let in? And then if we're not getting let in, how come we're not taking a fire extinguisher and smashing the window down? I'm like, that's a good question.
Because if you foul on purpose, all of a sudden you're fucking spirit of the game. I'm like, why don't you just make it in the fucking rules to decentivize people from fouling on purpose then? Instead of just being like, it's this whole ethical fucking thing. I'm in too. I'm like, why does it have to be this like, don't, and like people are going to join and like foul on purpose. We're going to be like, shame, you were trying to win and it made sense, but that's so wrong of you to do that.
Kins, it's been 55. I'm sorry. It's baked in. It's 55 years. You can't unbake it from the sport.
You can bake it, bro. It's a rule.
Do you think is the Frisbee community supportive of the Frisbee community?
No.
We need the history.
That's so weird.
We need to
Definitely not.
But I'm like, okay, I can't. I don't even want to talk about it.
I could make a whole other film about that, but it'd be too difficult.
No, right after this, boom. Next project.
Just whip it up.
Okay, well, let me ask you another question around storytelling. What kind of stories would you be interested in hearing about that are not tournament focused or necessarily even history? Like, you are the historian, so what kind of story could someone else tell that you would really like latch onto, do you think?
I mean, historically, Tad and Pat asked Jody this at one point. You know, he picked up the Cuervo series, which is, oh my God, you guys don't know the Cuervo story?
My dad has a sick Jose Cuervo fanny pack that I loved in high school.
Oh,
from when Jose Cuervo was sponsoring, and I thought it was so cool because it was like, Jose Cuervo, I'm in high school, I drink. Anyway.
So I talked to D Rambo just like last week. Awesome, right? Great dude. In the late 80s, early 90s, he got Cuervo to sponsor Ultimate Frisbee tournaments around the country. And it was going to be a 5-year plan, right? And Cuervo needed to get on national television with an event because you couldn't advertise liquor on TV. So
sounds like Starbuds.
So their end around was, we're going to sponsor these sports tournaments, host these tournaments, and the tournaments will be broadcast, and then it's a Jose Cuervo tournament. Genius idea. So what do they start with? They start with beach volleyball. So the reason beach volleyball became popular and started to become a thing was because all of a sudden Cuervo put time, money, and in year 3 or 4 or whatever, they got on TV. And that became like a thing. And they were going to do this with Ultimate Frisbee. So we get into year 1 and they're sponsoring Cuervo. And year 2, they sponsor it. And the first thing they do is they introduce a 2-point line. They're like, okay, we're going to have a 2-point line. We're going to call it the gold shot line. It's a hit. The top teams, New York, Boston, men's and women's, are like playing great Ultimate. It's kind of like an early version of what the pros are going to be. It's high level. Year 3, they're going to broadcast it and they're going to go on their way. Well, it turns out the players were like unruly. They were like stealing tequila. They weren't respectful. They weren't going to sell out. The sport wasn't going to sell out. And maybe the sport was maybe still a little bit too small. But take all of that, put that into a film, into a story. That's what I want to see.
People telling us not to foul, but they're stealing fucking tequila from Cuervo. But we can't foul if we're trying to win.
Your dad was probably one of them. He was probably the dude that started it.
He probably stole the fanny pack. He probably fucking. I probably am wearing a fucking stolen fanny pack from Cuervo. I don't even know. It's bullshit.
Talk to Big Rick, man. We're an individualistic sport. We're free thinkers, man. We're outsiders. That's who we are. So it's like, it's hard to it's hard to break through that. I mean, the reason we are all here today, the reason we love it is because we really are dedicated to being ourselves. I mean, that's what also I think is interesting. Like the kids of today, the reason why I think this film can resonate is because it's like, hey, free thinkers, freedom, we're doing things our own way, the right way. Shouldn't that be celebrated? Mm-hmm. And all these other sports are kind of like rigid, they're controlled, they're this, they're that. And turns out no. So
because I think a little bit of like structure allows, for more freedom in a lot of senses, though. I think like what I kind of think about with the whole thing is like everyone has different like priorities and things that they value more, maybe like as an individual and stuff. And so I think the problem is like a lot of people, when they say spirit of the game, it's like what they value. Yep. And then when you don't do what they value, then they say that's against spirit of the game. But then I just think we should just, if it's really a good idea and we really shouldn't be allowing for it, I think you can make rules to allow for it instead of just like shaming people for not doing what you prioritize. Because I agree, it's like you're all these free thinkers, like everyone is kind of doing, what they want to do. And I think you've got to find the balance between allowing for that and not, I suppose.
Ain't easy.
It's hard.
I got one for you guys. All right. So like, when I did a fundraiser for the film, we raised $20,000 from the community. I wasn't going to do a big crowdfunder, but I wanted to do something. I got a match lead investor. I need to keep raising money. So if you're listening to this, you want to contribute dollars, it's tax deductible. And investors, please, let's talk, because there's a lot of great stuff going on with this. But I'm going to give away 2 of my books to some of the people that contributed. So I got a list of names. I'm reading them off. You got to tell me. You got to vote for who's going to win. You ready? Here we go.
And these are random people.
What?
We're just voting for random people.
You 3. You guys got to give me a name. All right.
Okay. Should I just
Sean
shout
K.
out when I like the name?
Yep.
Or?
Brian M. Dave S. Maddie Z. Augie K.
Yeah.
Jesse W.
Augie.
Augie.
Cool name, man.
All right. Okay. Okay. Augie. 1 vote for Augie.
I liked Augie too. I'm glad you said that, Quinn.
2 for.
I'm going Maddie Z.
Okay.
We're like 10 in.
Maddie
We
Z
got
out of here.
80 fucking.
Oh yeah,
names.
we got.
Let me finish a few more. We know that.
Yeah.
Courtney E, Bruce H, Mike Z already said, Jane L.E, Candy J, Loic L, yeah, Matt W, Dave R, David L, Dave C, Justin H, Suzanne F, Homeboy S.
Yes, Homeboy.
Yes. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. I'm gonna give me Candy too. Let me vote for Candy too. That's
Candy.
All
right.
Candy and Homeboy.
Homeboy all day. Homeboy is so tough. And also Homeboy, if you're listening to this, how do I be you?
Yeah,
I want to be Homeboy.
Right,
I want to be
Homeboy Sandman. Look him up. Dan, Jeff W, Aiden SL. I wonder who that could be. Taliesin T, Mark D, Ryan B, Tim R, Adam F, Henry T, Ben W, Jem M, Sherry M. Oh, you've seen this on here too. Jasper T, we don't know who that is. Tim R, Fred A.
That's definitely
Kevin
Jasper
H,
Tom, right? Like
Larry S, Andy B, Kelly S, Stefan D.
Andy B.
Stephen
I love
G.
Andy B.
Okay.
But he doesn't need a copy though, right? Like here, he's got enough history.
Give
he
me
doesn't need a copy.
Yes.
give me a vote.
True,
give me a vote
But
for
shout
Fred
out
A.
Andy B.
Give me a vote for Fred A because Fred again, and I love Fred again.
Fred A.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fred.
I want to give.
You see the rest of them.
I want to give Sherry one because it's a lot of dudes. I think it's dope that Sherry's in there.
That is a
Sherry.
great choice. That was a great choice. I know who that is.
I'm going Maddie Z and Jesse W.
Okay.
Is that Jesse Witt?
Nope.
That was really fun and chaotic.
That was fun.
I loved it.
And this
Maddie Z, though. Maddie Z is Maddie Zemmel.
I figured. I assumed so.
this has to be Joe Smash, right? Or no?
No.
Wow.
That's a different Joseph A.
All right, he doesn't get my vote then. Too.
Although he's played on Boneyard. I'll give you that tip. Sorry, graveyard, boneyard or graveyard.
Okay. That's interesting.
I should know, but I don't.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right,
But
thanks, guys.
I think you do. I think you do show their full names on your website, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I probably do. Yeah, that's all right. It's better this way. Then we'll make a selection out of that. I'll get on another podcast and I'll narrow it down to those six.
That was
I looked up
narrowed it
Homeboy, so he's a rapper.
Yeah.
Hell yeah!
Hell
I'm
yeah!
listening to your shit, Homeboy.
Yeah. He's a friend of mine. He's a cool dude.
He looks cool.
That's funny.
I'm curious. I just thought of this. What do you think of that movie Flatball? That was like, a little bit of a whatever.
Flatball was flawed. Flatball is a great movie in a lot of ways, and it kind of like set the stage. It was important. I loved it watching it, but it was a little flawed. The interviews, you can't. I've been in the film and television business for like 25 years. You don't just shoot an interview outdoors and just throw somebody out there. It's just cheap. I mean, honestly. And so like, and one of the, a couple of the guys he talked to were wearing like sunglasses, and it's like, eyes tell the story. Like I took a screenwriting course at SIF in Seattle, and I remember one of the screenwriter teacher telling me, like, take a look at this script here. This is a Hollywood script. One page. You know what this page is worth? It's $1 million. Every word on this page has got to be really good, because that's the amount of money they're going to spend on that one page. And I think of that when you're going to make a documentary, every shot, every beat has to be spot on. And so like, I thought that Flatball did not quite get there, and it's really, really, really hard. So it's no fault to Cribber. It is just not easy. You need time, and you need money, and you need experts, and you need a little bit of magic and luck, honestly. So
no, that's cool. I feel like I like that way of looking at it too, because I like that. I just like that whatever metaphor of the page being $1 million, right, and how much you're putting into each word and going through it. I mean, I want to do that in all of life. Everything I do out there.
Maybe I'll ask you, can you give us some advice on some of this then? Because we want to help. We want to help document the history of the sport, without stepping on your toes by any means. But
don't worry.
That's like why we want to do sort of like a history series, because after having Nob on and Isaac, that was sort of the impetus to reach out to you. And then it was very fortuitous that you just happened to send an update email about the lot. And I was like, oh, perfect. And I just hit reply.
You should talk to, who would be cool to talk to? Louie Mahoney. I believe that's her last name. Like, she's a real character. She just got in the hall in the look back committee. She's really funny. Like, you need early. So that I will say that I think the next hall category, one of the next hall categories, is going to be early female pioneers, because for the early women players, it was pretty hard for them to continue on. I thought Candy Johnson, by the way, is awesome. She's in the film. She played Ultimate because they didn't have any other sports for her to play at Columbia. It's pre-Title IX, so she's in that trailer. You've probably seen her. And she was like a sick athlete, and she just wanted to play all the time. So that's the stories we need. But when she goes to college, she tries to start a team. It ain't happening. It's too difficult, and you just needed more women. So the early women pioneers don't get as much recognition because the male pioneers were able to go on and start teams in college, and then play in college, and then recruit more, and then continue on. And it was so difficult for those early women. So I think if you can talk to some of those early women pioneers, and Louie's a real character, I think she'd be pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that'd be kind of neat, And it's important to know that we are Carl Cook. So, we did a podcast called The Outsiders where we were just doing this historical stuff. So I talked to Irv and I talked to Slap, and our next one was Carl Cook. Carl Cook is like seriously like like the best photographer our sport has ever seen. And no offense to Scoble and to Rick and to Dan Heislop. Those are sick photographers. Carl Cook is the man. And so like, I shot a whole episode with him for my little podcast I was doing with Tushar and Chuck Cleary. but we couldn't. I didn't air it yet, so I don't know. I got to think about if I want to give you Carl. I mean, you can steal him from me, but
We're
that's an
taking
amazing.
Carl.
We can both do them.
We're
Well, I
taking
also
Carl.
want to ask advice. Advice on the standpoint from the standpoint of how do you pull out information from people, and how do you conduct a good interview?
That's actually a really cool question, because the reason that I went to nationals in 97 or 6 or whatever it was, and wrote as much as I did, and essentially have been doing that to this day, is because I really like to hear people's stories. And I would listen, they would tell me, and I would write it down, and they would tell me what their strategy was, and I would write it down. They'd tell me how they got to, the backdoor bracket from regionals, and I was like fascinated. So there's something about just my personal self that I just love to hear these stories.
I think you everybody can tell that you're so enthusiastic and like so excited to hear more about the history. And
so if I'm going to interview someone, I'm going to, you want them. I don't want just the story, right? I want to find out what's behind the story. I want to find out what the emotions are and what kind of brings out why that person is telling that story, if that makes sense.
Like what made it memorable. Like, sure, it happened, but something about it. Like Knob's story about fucking going through the army base with the 12 people in the car after the finals, and like, that kind of stuff.
And what's this takeaway? That, it's that we're these weirdos outside the sport, right? Like,
100%.
The follow-up question to me would be like, so Knob, what is, but you're an insider, like, you're the face of WIFDIF. How does that, you are the Army now, like, where's the balance there? It's interesting.
Totally. Yeah.
That
would have been a good question to ask. Someone after the fact suggested that we missed an opportunity to ask him about how worthless game advisors are.
Oh God. Careful with that.
Hey, we like observers. We like observers. All right. Is there anything else, Tony? Anything else you want to touch on about the film itself?
Yeah, if anybody welcome to thelot.com. If you want to see the teaser, the trailer, we have an investor deck, a pitch deck. I've got an assistant editor who's awesome, who's working on assemblies right now. Like we're doing this, and we're working, like, I have calls nonstop coming up. You know what I mean? We're talking to everybody. So anybody who wants to talk to me, reach out. I talked to Jim Nolte just a couple weeks ago. Talked to Steve Mooney today. Like, talked to Suzanne. I'm talking to PUL. Let's talk. I mean, hey, I'm pretty accessible and I love to talk, obviously. Help me make this film. That's all I want to say. Like, look at what we're doing and know that we're trying to get to the next level,
Hell yeah. Yeah. And thanks for all you're doing. And we definitely want to assist in any way we can.
Yes.
Financial or not. I'll make sure to coordinate with you after the fact, but maybe we can post some of your promotional materials too, and just try to spread the word a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. If that, whatever. That's a great example. Like something like that's great. Like, sometimes that's more than money, and it's not all about money, honestly.
I feel like we take a page out of Joel's book. We get some shirts made up, some real good looking shirts, a good picture, something to like create some folklore online. You know what I mean?
Listen,
something that looks super official, super good, but people and like they want to look into it.
You guys are like already like I'm going to talk to some of our brand, some of our endemic shirt makers, because I have access to a lot of old designs.
Yes.
Right. So like I want to make like some retro shirts and like sell them as a fundraiser for the documentary. So
sick.
we're making like already we're like this is an old timey. That's a funny one to pull out.
Is that?
That was a from Wham-O ad from the
really
so sick. Like, where's
this is our logo, obviously. I got a lot more of these coming.
Holy shit.
So like, yeah, we're doing a lot of that type of stuff, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think cool. I think you emailed me and said you had a lot of the old team logos, which I would love to see.
I'll send you guys like a
stuff.
swag bag of stuff too.
Yeah.
By the way, give me an address. I'll send you a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I love the takeaway from Joel, which is like, you have a sick idea. Like, you can feel it in your freaking soul. So it's like, don't wait for anything else. Like, make something, make it
Just
official
lie
the
about
way.
it.
Not even you're
No,
not
I'm
lying.
kidding. I
Just
know.
make it official. Make it official the way you see it can be. And all of a sudden, you get that like herd. People are like, "Oh, it's official. Okay, I'm gonna go, follow that." And then it just starts spiraling out of control. Just like, fake it till you make it in that sense. And I love that.
we have to do that as a sport now. I mean,
as a sport, and I think as the film, like anytime you have this good idea, you know what I mean? You don't need outside external justification for it to be a good idea. Like if you know like deep down that you got something, just like go for it. And also like make it that official thing. I just thought that story was so cool.
People are going to keep you down though, no matter when you have no,
for
when
sure.
you go through it,
even if you make the t-shirt, but you just keep going. That's cool. Yeah. No, I love that. And Tony, I really do. I know Mikey said it, but I love what you're doing. And I know like, we'll do anything to help. And I just, it juices me up, and I'd love to help any way I can.
Thanks to you guys, man. Thanks for bringing me on, because I appreciate talking to you. I love watching you guys play. I follow a lot of careers. I think I mentioned to Mike that I picked Quinn a couple times in fantasy, did all right. Kins, I would never pick you. You're way too risky.
I love that.
How does the fantasy work? Because I was looking at those that you sent. How does it actually work? I've never done it.
Ackshot ran that one year.
Okay.
It was, oh man, how did he do? You had to, he placed prices on everyone, right?
It was like auction.
So yeah, so like, and your prices changed every week. So like you started off like, I don't think we knew who you were, so, or not we, because I didn't, but I'm out on the East Coast anyway. But like, obviously, Osgar was like $23 every week, and then when Jordan starts going off, it was like he was $20 every week, whatever. So like the prices are that's pretty basic for fantasy.
Yeah,
and then it was I think it was yards. You got like a point for every 100 yards. You got 2 points for 2 points for a goal, -1 for a turnover. It was the usual type of thing. 2 for an assist, etc. Something like that.
I'm looking at week 12, and Jordan Kerr had a -3.
Also, I take it back. I don't want to help anymore after the
It's over.
comment. I'm done. I've lost all motivation with the film.
My partner loves you, Ken. She thinks you're like the best.
Honestly, what year was this? This was 2021?
That was 2022.
2022.
Two was our first year.
Oh,
I could share that document's like up there somewhere. It was like Ultra World Rant. It was like 150. I finished 9th actually.
That's hilarious.
I'd have 150 people on that fantasy.
So they did.
Quinn's like Saquon. Then he's like the one like everyone takes.
They do it for nationals every year, right? Because Nuts' girlfriend won or got second or something for
really?
nationals. Yeah.
Oh, like the pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun.
They got a couple different games they do now with that. The fantasy is way more fun when it's week to week with UFA
definitely.
because of the stat
and with
keeping.
all the stats. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's another thing I really like. It adds for so much more conversation.
And you were taking pick players every week though. What if you did it like a traditional fantasy football where you like drafted players for the whole year and there was like
awesome.
the waiver? That would be sick, dude.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Maybe Pod Practice will start that.
Oh,
Quinn, I like that Pod Practice.
That sounds sick, dude.
Copyright. You can't have that, Tony.
Oh, you can't have it.
I said it first.
Damn.
Are you allowed to even do that if you play in the league? That's the risk.
I don't know.
Delete. Where it doesn't matter.
Free thinkers, man.
We definitely. I remember.
Tony will definitely start it.
Yeah, I don't have enough to do already.
And then put all the money he made in an offshore bank account.
Yeah,
Switzerland.
Funnel it through the film.
Yeah.
Tax exempt or whatever.
Tax exempt.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
This is sick.
The real story of Frisbee.
This is sick.
All right, I got one more quick hitter question. When did people start throwing flicks and not chicken wings? When did that happen?
That's kind of cool. There's a guy named Victor Malafronte, and Adam wrote about him in the book, and he was like a freestyle dude, and he played a little bit of Ultimate too. So they called that chicken wing. They called it the overhand wrist flick. This guy Malafronte comes along, and at one of these Rose Bowls, he like demonstrates that he could sidearm this thing like 1,000,000 miles an hour for like distance, and he calls it the Macho Sidewinder.
Oh my God,
That's a shirt.
Taking that.
That's a shirt. That's a shirt.
We're making you a Macho Sidewinder shirt, and we'll find him and make sure
The
it's
Macho
cool.
merchant.
And we'll give him some proceeds or whatever he wants to donate
awesome.
to. God, that's fucking so fucking dope.
Yep. So once the Ultimate players saw that it could be done, then they started doing it. They're like, oh, okay, we could figure this out.
That's 100%
hilarious.
the next merch we're making. If you want it, let us know. It's going to be Quinn doing a Macho Sidewinder. We're going to be repping that.
I'll show you. There's some illustrations in some of these old. I also collect old books from the 1970s on Frisbee and on Ultimate. And there's
those
a couple.
Exist?
Look at if you go to Ultra Archives and go scroll all the way back to the very beginning, you'll see the Macho Sidewinder. I actually like put that one up. It's an illustrative drawing of Victor Malafronte throwing it. There's like 20 old books. I wish I have. I'll show you one of them.
We're finding Victor. Victor, we're coming for you.
I think most of mine are like off. I did a move recently, but like this is like one of the OG books on Ultimate.
Wow.
And this is like 80, 82 or one or something like that. And it's like it's crazy how much detail is in here.
This is the collection that I never knew I needed.
All the strategies, like you could pull out some offenses and defenses from like this book and be like,
we need that.
Yeah,
bro.
we need
Well, what's the URL to the website?
Oh, it's the website is welcometothelot.com and the
for Ulti Archives. Oh, is it just Instagram for Ulti Archives?
Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you'll see it on there.
The Macho Sidewinder.
That's so.
Quinn, you're gonna get like a sick mustache, and we're gonna take a picture of you, and it's gonna be an illustrative drawing of you being a Macho Sidewinder.
I'm in like a cutoff. Yes. I get a pump before.
100 million.
Victor Malafronte was like a real character. I never got to meet him. He wasn't really like an Ultimate player. He died relatively recently.
Oh.
So that would be a kind of a good honor type of thing.
That would be sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Quinn is kind of.
And he had a mustache.
Quinn is like a reincarnation of the Macho Sidewinder. Like,
hey, that's me.
He lives on, you know. It lives on. It doesn't die.
Wow. Yeah, this definitely. If you're listening, give Ulti Archives a follow on Instagram. There are some
really cool stuff. Yeah, I've been through the deep dive.
Pieces
for sure.
of history. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep putting more up on there.
And I do like even just like those little things. Like you just told us about like when the flick was started, and now like you know we like have this amazing idea because Quinn like is the Macho Sidewinder. Like I just feel like that's the important of the fucking history. Like there's just there's so much there.
Cal told me he's got a pretty funny thing. He's like he said that so Wham-O was trying to. Sorry, we'll keep it for the late night listeners. So Wham-O was like promoting that you could become like a Frisbee master, right? And they would send out this like booklet of like things you had to do to earn proficiency in Frisbeeing, right? And it was like you had to skip the disc to a partner, right? You had to throw 20-yard backhand like 5 times to somebody, 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, right? And they showed an illustration, apparently, of someone like throwing the forehand. And the way the early guys at the parking lot tell the story, Irv says, we saw that and we thought that was a joke because they were always making jokes because no one could throw that throw. That wasn't a real thing. And so we just wrote in that we did it anyway and we got our proficiency exam. Because we would try it and it wouldn't work and then we just throw the offhand wrist fling.
I mean, I just feel like all of this gives me so many good ideas. Like now I want a pod practice like proficiency test of like, things you need to do to get a fucking.
I'll send you the early. If you remind me, I can send you the Wham-O one, and you could just like take it like because it's like 10 different levels. You could just like adopt it as your own and like reinterpret the text on it.
And this makes me
funny.
so happy. I can't even express it.
Well,
learning this stuff. My dad, I know, is going to be so pissed at me because he was trying to tell me so much of the shit, and I was a little shithead high schooler. And
I think Quinn just sent us his picture.
Yeah, I found it. I scrolled all. Yeah. It's like the fourth post on your page. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad's
awesome.
gonna be pissed at me for sure. He's definitely gonna yell at me for not listening.
Oh, I saw Big Rick at PUL, man. I love Big Rick.
Yeah. He's a good guy, and definitely gave me some good history on the sport as well. I was listening to some of it, Dad.
Dude, I didn't follow history until like it's crazy. I mean, honestly, like it's not you, it's all of us. Like
totally.
I didn't care about youth until like all of a sudden one day I was like, wait a second, like why aren't we teaching the kids? Like it didn't even occur to me for like 30 years of playing Ultimate. Like, oh yeah, we should teach kids to play Ultimate. Like it didn't cross my mind until I was like 40 years old and had a kid. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's a good idea.
And that's the thing; it just gives so much value out of it. Like, just I can't even like articulate it that well.
Yeah,
but it's just giving me a warm, funny feeling.
It does. It bums me out how little current players know about even players from 10 years ago.
But we're gonna change that, man.
Yeah.
Pod practice, history.
I feel like we're gonna have another gear release here of just other teams stuff. I'll have to talk to you, Tony. Maybe we can figure out a way to print some stuff and get a fundraiser going for
And if if you're an old head listening to this, we want you on. We want your stories. We want to hear them.
Big Rick, if you're listening, we want to hear you talk for 45 minutes on Podpack.
Big Rick is listening. He'll be listening about 2 months from now. He commonly complains about the length of the episodes and that he doesn't know. He can't listen to them.
That is the biggest complaint we get, and we still don't change. We're just like,
put it on 2x speed.
Sorry.
You can do that. Old head, you can put it on 2x.
So I'm assuming you guys are going to edit this. I mean, this is way past this. I wouldn't watch this.
We don't edit.
I wouldn't watch it either.
This is good stuff. I mean, if we had, we probably
we'll cut some of it.
Well, so it's funny when
it's honestly time consuming to cut stuff. So it's just like let's throw it out there.
That's the thing. We need more money.
It's so ultimate.
We need editors. It's so
ultimate. When Devin listens to the podcast, she's always like, "So I can listen on 1.5 speed when Mikey and Quinn are talking." Yeah. But when Kins is talking, I can't understand him on 1.5. So I have to listen on 1. But then when I listen on 1, it sounds like Mikey's talking like so slow. And I'm like, yeah.
It's because I've evolved to just output so much information in such a fast amount of time.
Kins, I'll never forget, like, I'm watching one of your games and Chuck Kindred, who's hilarious. You do something crazy, and Chuck says, well, you can take the boy out of Philly, but you can't take Philly out of the boy.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's a classic.
Like, nailed it.
Some of his quotes are fucking hysterical. I listen to him talk, and I'm like,
he's so
what
funny.
Are you even saying, dude? Like, where did that come from? I love it.
Yeah, man. Chuck Kindred's pretty damn funny.
He is good at like making those lines up on the spot, and the way he delivers it too. I like the highlight when he goes, when Quinn throws deep, it's good. When Kins goes downfield, it's good.
I just don't understand what it is about this guy.
When he was on the sideline, they put him on the sideline for one series or whatever. It was like, he's like, yeah, it's pretty windy down here, and the fans sure are drinking,
we need more Chuck. That's so funny. Oh my god! If you've made it this far into the episode, you are pod.
You are Chuck Kindred.
Yeah.
You are Chuck Kindred.
Chuck's the only one listening.
Yeah, very likely.
And my mom.
No, I feel really good about this.
Okay. Yeah. On that note, Tony, thanks a ton for being here. We're definitely gonna ask you to come back on because there are so many questions about history and we want to get another update on the film as it continues to go along.
I would love like a recurring Tony story time segment where Tony comes on with any story that you think, you just have a story you've come across. It's really interesting. You come on, it's the segment. Maybe we do it like once a month, and it's just like you tell the story
Your best
of
story.
some interesting thing that people don't,
That would be awesome.
I think it'd be awesome.
That'd be fucking awesome.
So anytime you have a story, let us know. We'll do like fireside.
Go through that history book and find something you like, and we could tighten it to like a 10-15 minute little thing, and I'm sure I'll probably wrap on it.
And we need more content like that to the people saying we only have 2 hours shit. We're working on it, okay?
But then
you wanna work for us? Then do it. You want our episodes to be shorter?
We spend about 10 minutes talking about the fact that our episodes are too.
You want our episodes to be shorter? You fucking cut it.
Exactly.
You reach out and you edit it for us.
Yeah, true. We would love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Final thing. Is the history book still in print? Can I?
So look for talk to William Brotman, right? Brody. Talk to Brody. I think he has the stash of them. Like it's not in print. Joe Seidler has passed away this year.
Mikey, we at least have one. My dad at least has one copy for sure.
I need to have one though. I don't know why I don't have one at the house.
It's an unbelievable book, honestly. Like, I'm biased, but it's pretty cool.
This is gonna get me to read.
Tony, I'm gonna need you to get you to sign it as well at some point.
Yeah, we'll trade. I'll get signatures from y'all too, because the pop action is pretty sweet, honestly.
Fuck yeah.
Appreciate the kind words.
Except the long episodes. I hate that shit.
Yeah, I honestly hate it too, dude.
All right. Let's get out of here. Okay. Thanks again, Tony.
Later. Thanks for having me on. Peace.